On the website, y'all call out that you do sustainable additive manufacturing. What is additive manufacturing?
Yeah, so I mean, additive is really any manufacturing modality that applies material layer by layer and builds up a part rather than taking, say, a bar of material and cutting it away to the part. It tends to be a lot more efficient on material because you're only using material where you need it and not creating waste. So that's part of the eco-friendliness, sustainability aspect of additive, especially with FDM, which is we can get into all the different types of additive. But when you have the material in a spool like this, a lot of times there's available recycled materials and some cool things that you can do with that. A lot of it, I believe, is used. They try and use recycled raw inputs.
And is there an element that's also cost savings?
Additive has historically been known to be more expensive because just the materials have to be processed first into what goes into the machine, and I think that's been a big driver of the cost, which is getting better by the day as more growth in the industry happens and the economies of scale develop and all that. The materials are starting to come down closer to say the pellets that go into an injection molder or the bar stock that goes into a CNC machine. When it comes to metal, you're dealing with powders, which have a lot of processing and things. So really, that's kind of what everybody in the industry is, lining up with and waiting for, is those economies of scale and the materials and the costs come down, because then you start to get more competitive with traditional. Where it does shine for cost is on the lower volumes. Say it's a plastic component that you may need 100,000 eventually, but right now you need 2,000 to get the product launched. That's the real sweet spot, especially with our business right now, is those low to medium and kind of bridging the production up to where you need to invest in the expensive tooling and things. So the lack of tooling is really I would say the number one cost savings for making a part with additive.
Gotcha. So the part itself may be a little bit more expensive than doing it at scale in a production run, but the fact that you don't have to set all that infrastructure up and you can kind of get that prototype out quickly is where it actually does save you money.
Yeah, that exactly.
Well, before we get too further into the weeds here, I want to give a quick introduction. Ryan here is the co-founder of Chatelet Manufacturing. They specialize in additive manufacturing, and as he just explained, a lot of the use cases are on like prototyping, both businesses that are getting started as well as ones that are exploring new products. So Ryan, thanks so much for lending some time to us and letting us jam out on 3D printing and manufacturing.
Yeah, excited to be here. Been happy to do this.
To kind of double back on where we started, what would you describe as the pros and cons of additive manufacturing versus maybe more kind of like old school approaches?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind is the flexibility that you have in terms of not having to invest in expensive tooling to make a plastic component, and we'll differentiate between kind of metal additive and polymers. We specialize in polymers. We haven't gotten into the metals yet, but the big advantage is really that flexibility and be able to go from design to part the same day. We've done it before where we have an idea on our Amazon consumer products. We'll have an idea for a product in the morning and a live Amazon listing by the evening. So like we've done that plenty of times. Honestly, a sale by the evening. It's pretty wild. That's a good way of describing the benefits of additive. Your design flexibility is a huge one. Being able to do features that are difficult to machine, or internal channels in a component. Some of those complexities where you can just throw caution to the wind and design the part exactly how you want it for the application. And then, additive allows you to work around things that are limitations traditionally.
You're an engineer by training. I know you worked in sales and the manufacturing side as well. What led y'all to start a manufacturing business from scratch?
Yeah.
You don't hear that too much these days.
Yeah.
I know the current administration would love more people to be doing it.
It's it's a fun story. I'll tell the story, as it happened. So I was in, industrial sales, and I just kind of gone into HVAC contract sales at a new company. My first week was COVID. So you can imagine trying to sell air conditioning systems to hotels during COVID. It was tough, but so the wheels got, and my business partner was in a similar thing. We, COVID gave everybody a little time to think and things like that. So he was involved in doing some Amazon products, dipping into that. Everybody's work from home, online shopping, supply chain breakdown, like all these ideas are swirling. And he and I over beers I was thinking of 3D printing. He was thinking of Amazon. And we were like, wait a second. So the printing is good enough now where you can have an idea for a product, make one or two, list it, and start getting sales and then bootstrap it. We were also thinking like, how do we bootstrap a business from scratch, And so
Sure.
we were like, all you need to do is start and get a couple printers, start making some products, get some Amazon listings going, and just snowball it from there. And here we are 5 years later, and we've got, I think, 80 printers now. It's been a long road, and we're starting to we're not transitioning away from doing our Amazon products. That's always going to be fun for us, and it's a good foundation. But really going after more industrial applications, solving problems, doing the real manufacturing. So
Sure. For those listening and not watching, behind Ryan is what I assume to be a number of printers. Is that right?
yeah, so this is my office. I've got 5 in my office. Kind of juggle, if I don't have any prototypes to run, we'll just run production on them. And then I get to steal time away from them to do prototyping, and we can get into it, how we do our RFQs, samples, all that kind of stuff. So I like having them right behind me. They all got their HEPA filters and everything, so pretty safe.
How much does an average printer cost?
So that's been a big thing in the industry. So there's, it's anywhere from, you can get a printer for probably $100 now, all the way up to hundreds of thousands, $1 million metal printers. So it runs everything in between. The big change that's happened is with this company Bamboo. I'm sure a lot of people listening have heard of them. It's becoming kind of the go-to printer. We started with Ultimakers because they were the best kind of that professional-ish consumer level printer that can make a good part. We started with those, and then as soon as Bamboo came out, I got my hands on one. It was like, told my business partner, dude, we got to start rotating these out. Like, we got to get on this. And so here we are now with we standardized to all Bamboos. These are, the X1s are, I think they're right about $1,500. And then the H2, which is the one over there, the bigger one, those are a few thousand, I believe. And so we're going to start adding more of those. And then we also have, for our flexible TPU, we have a whole room for TPU, which is 25 plus of their entry level model, the A1, which is a few $100. So for a few $100 a printer, we just bought 25 of them and set up this whole production line of flexible material.
Wow.
So yeah, it's,
and TPU is the,
it's,
is that a brand?
No, it's a material. So this is one of our actual consumer products. It's a magnetic phone holder for, boats, RVs, tractors, things like that. And it's just, flexible TPU and embedded magnets in the back. So those are kind of a cool one that we do. But yeah, we with TPU, you kind of have to print it slower. So it's kind of like, there's no use putting it into, your highest end printer when you have to turn the speed way down, and an entry level printer can print equally as well. So that's kind of the thought process of just setting up a dedicated room just for TPU. And we also have some big orders, customer orders that are TPU that we kind of necessitated it. But that's a little bit about like kind of the printers that we have. Obviously our sights are set down the line on more advanced printers, in the tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars eventually. You can easily spend $1 million plus on metal additive, but that's a big undertaking. There's people doing it in aerospace and all that, something to work towards.
Sure. And to kind of walk through an order from end to end, let's say you have someone come in to take the kind of object you were showing us, which is like a phone holder with a magnetic back. They describe that to you. Are you typically doing some type of like design consulting services for like mocking that up? Are they coming to you with that?
Yeah. So I can, I'll kind of lay out like each thing that we do. So when it comes to, most of our consumer oriented products, that's where we have an idea and I do the design. I do all the CAD and engineering of it and everything, develop it for a little bit, and then we list it. And if it sells, it sells, then we just keep making it. And if it doesn't sell, then, chalk it up to, we try. That's the first one. The second one would be an inventor has a product that they, maybe have a patent for, they're trying to get it launched, something like that. Bring it to us. I can take their napkin drawing, turn it into a real product, because I've done, over 1,000 products at this point on our own. So I can turn it into something real. We can put it in their hands, they can go start selling it. And we've actually had a lot of success. One of our customers has a child safety product that goes on kids' car seats. And
Sure.
so he brought it to us, had a patent, was having a hard time finding anybody that could prototype it effectively, like make a real product out of it. And I went to work and put something in his hands that he tested, launched the website, did everything. And now he's getting contracts. And that's why we had to add the big room full of the TPU printers to make a huge order of those. So basically from concept to a successful product was in the span of less than 6 months for him on that. So that's a, going back to the big benefits of additive, and especially where it is now, that's the type of thing that's possible. That product is, with the success it's having, would be one where we would go transition it to injection molding because it makes sense now.
And then I imagine at some point, do y'all want to add those capabilities in-house, or are you typically kind of losing the customer as they transition to injection molding?
Yeah. So the interesting thing, I'll talk a little bit about it. I won't go too much into detail, but we're working with some other partners on an acquisition right now, an injection mold shop that would be a separate company for the time being. And, we'll see what happens down the line, but we're adding that through acquisition. So the two businesses can work together, and when there's something that needs to be transitioned, we can send it over there. And then we also will have CNC machining. So basically the trifecta, you have additive, injection molding, and CNC all working together to offer, pretty unique offering.
In addition to y'all kind of coming up with your own products, and it's almost like your prop side of the business where you're like, hey, we're going to come up with ideas and then we can kind of deliver it in-house, versus someone coming to you and saying, hey, I have an idea. Can you build this out? How often are you working with like existing manufacturers or commercial clients that either need tweaks to something that they've already created, or you're kind of providing some amount of bandwidth to them?
So I kind of missed that. So I gave the two, our own products, then inventor products. The third being kind of your traditional, like what you would go to a machine shop for, or, a traditional manufacturing business where they have a part that goes into, whatever their product is. Maybe they can't get it from their supplier now, or it's a difficult to machine part, or, something about it makes it a good candidate for additive. And so in acquiring those customers, we're working a lot with machine shops that don't have any additive, that say, hey, this is a 5-step machining process, like, let's see if it makes more sense to just print it. And we're getting a lot of those opportunities, and they are turning out to be really good for everybody. The customer saves money, they get it faster, they don't have to commit to as big of volumes. So there's a lot of benefits, provided, everything has to be a good candidate. And we'll be the first to tell them if it's like, hey, you're better off going the way that you have been. But anything that comes our way, we'll give it a shot. And I'll print a test and we'll send it to them. I've got some that are going out today. Just have them check it over and give the thumbs up, and then we're good to go. So,
got it. And for those leads, are you typically reaching out to machine shops and just saying like, hey, this is what we're up to, if you have any customers, send them our way? Or is it more of a word of mouth thing that's spread by this point?
Yeah, kind of both. So those machine shops, especially if they've been in business a long time versus us new guys, that, having it be mutually beneficial has been the way that we've wanted to approach it. They've already got all their customers, and now this is like a new bolt on that they can also offer. So so far it's been really good for the ones we've worked with and the customers that we've been able to serve. So, gotten some good contracts out of it. Now, we're the supplier for several parts now. We're the supplier. So that's the goal.
That's really cool.
That's really the goal. Yeah.
When you're thinking about like pricing out a project, there's obviously like materials. I imagine your electricity bill is maybe a little bit larger than other folks in the flex space.
Probably.
And then you have labor, materials, so on and so forth. How do you think about pricing? Are you kind of like adding up those and then baking in a margin, or is there another approach that you take?
Early on, we kind of established that our printers are worth a certain dollar per hour figure. And if we hit that, in the cost of some, like when we were doing an Amazon product or something, we know this type of product sells for, $17 and it costs this much. Like, that's part of how we decide if a product is worth doing or not when it comes to the consumer stuff, is like, if it takes 12 hours and a bunch of material and you can only charge about $15, like, we just won't do it. So it helps us select what we do. But I mean, the short answer is it comes down to time and material. of how many you can fit in a print, which drives your volumes, things like that. So we kind of look at it in totality and come up with a per unit price. So, like, a machine shop customer, or, an end user in B2B, they, bring us a part, and that really is as simple as, what's our material cost on it? How many can we fit in a build, and what kind of volumes can we do? And we determine a per unit price on it.
On your site, you mentioned two acronyms that I didn't know. One was like FDM, and then another was SLA, but I don't know if it's like SLA in terms of the typical time to get something back. What do those acronyms mean, and why are they important to your customers?
So, printing is dozens of things, right? Additive is a very broad term. FDM, or FFF, as it's sometimes called now, is when you have filament like you see behind me, where you have basically extruded tube of material that gets fed into a print nozzle, and it gets deposited in, like, tracing with a pencil, but layer by layer. That's the most common that you see in, like, hobbyist consumer type stuff, but is great for industrial parts now because the materials are a lot better, the printers are a lot better, so you can do a lot more with it. It is known to be slower, but that's also a relative term. Are you compared to injection molded, where it's, stamping out a part a second, or, that type of thing? So that's FDM, FFF. And then SLA is when you're talking about a liquid resin photopolymer. So it uses UV light,
Okay.
UV light to harden the resin and builds it layer by layer that way. The part's usually inverted, so it's on a build plate that comes down into a vat of resin, and the light gets projected at that layer to harden the material, and then it slowly drags it up out of the vat.
Interesting.
So we have that in much smaller amounts. So that's really good for, like, really high detail, or, sometimes just the material that you need is only available in, one or the other. But the speeds on SLA and the production quantities are getting up there. I mean, it's a great technology. It's used a lot in, dental, footwear, anything where you want, like, really intricate lattice structures and things like that. So those are the two that we have in house right now. The other two main ones would be SLS, which is where you're taking a laser and tracing in a powder to build the part. So fusing the particles, whether it's a plastic or a metal powder together. Those are kind of the main three that are dominating. There's others that I'm leaving out, I'm sure, but those are kind of the three that we've been focused on, and SLS being the next phase for us, just because of the production volumes, the pros and cons of it. So we see it very much as there's no one tool for the job. Just have all the tools, and whatever the application is, you steer it into the right method. So,
and how has the team build up changed over time? I know you're like 5 years in now, but also at the same time, 3D printing seems like quite automated compared to, like, if you step into a fab shop or something like that.
Yeah, by personnel, we're the smallest we've ever been. So we got up to 6 or 7, I want to say. And now it's only 4. Yeah. And we have twice.
And what do their kind of roles look like?
Yeah. So our operations manager is a rock star. Manages basically all the scheduling the prints, running the prints, fulfillment, all the operational stuff. With some help, I'll help, and give my input and things like that. And then we have a person that is involved in the inspection prep, all of that sort of thing. And then I'm all the engineering, and my business partner is kind of all the business admin, sales, all the Amazon side, a lot of the customer facing stuff.
Sure. What would you say are the common misconceptions about additive manufacturing from the end customers that you're chatting with?
A big one is that the quality is somehow inferior, or the performance is somehow inferior, which it can be true. And, like, it's a constant thing we're saying. It all depends on the application, depends on the part, geometry, what it's needed, what's needed of it, things like that. The quality's gotten so much better. We keep putting parts in people's hands, and they go, "This is print, like, what? I had no idea." And then it opens their mind up to think of all the parts that they've been overlooking. And so that's really, when it comes to sales and engaging with customers, is what we're trying to do, is get them to start thinking again of, like, you're doing things a certain way because it's always been done that way. And there's all these benefits you could be realizing if you kind of just shift the thinking and be open to it. And we'll hold your hand through the whole thing, and we'll be the first to tell you like, hey, just don't bother. Or hey, we can save you all this money and time, and whatever it is. So over time, the thought process, with me and I think the industry in general is, it's not going to do everything, but it's always going to be doing more, if that makes sense. And the gap is going to continue to narrow between kind of traditional and additive, but there's, like I said, there's no one tool for every job. I think it takes, forward thinking companies to go and take the traditional manufacturer, combine it with the additive and offer something new, which is what we're really trying to do, especially,
Sure.
With the acquisition of the traditional shop and things like that. So.
Yeah. How have y'all seen the renewed push towards American manufacturing or the impact of tariffs, if there has been any, to your business?
Yeah, definitely the reshoring trend. I don't feel like we've felt much of the tariffs yet, but the reshoring trend of everybody's now wanting to shop around a little more and look into other methods to get the parts that they need, and people are just exploring a lot more and looking at U.S. suppliers, which is just a great thing. And we're with all these new tools and technologies and being able to have a really lean team and leverage automation, all these types of things, we could start to close that gap with Asia and pricing and things like that. It's a uphill battle because we have a lot more working against us, and material costs and different things like that. But that's really what we're trying to do, is be much easier to deal with, close to home, all that kind of thing.
Sure. And on the regulatory side, have you run into any areas where kind of American regulations are holding y'all back, or has it been more or less kind of greenfield?
No, I mean, not. I don't think at our scale, really. Our biggest competitor is China, honestly. When it comes to consumer products, everybody that we're competing with is some Chinese manufacturer doing Amazon products, or or it's kind of all of U.S. shops versus China and Asia. So I don't.
Sure.
I like to not think of it like we're all these shops competing against each other here. It's everybody versus But
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but no, it's been
No,
there's so much opportunity right now. It's really just how much work you can put in and how hard you want to go. So.
sure. On the reshoring motion, I know that I've chatted with a number of folks who own either like metal fabs or foundries or whatnot. And there's obviously like some stuff that's offshore that probably shouldn't be brought onshore. There's other stuff that definitely should. And then there's some stuff in the gray area where it's like, can we figure out a way to do this in a way that makes sense? Whether it's like, hey, more customization, shorter lead times, kind of fill in the blank. What is your mental model for like what the state of American manufacturing looks like in 5 or 10 years?
It's a big question. I mean, I think the biggest thing is people getting interested in it again, and the talent, the pool of talent that may have been applied to software and finance or all these other places, having the interest shift toward manufacturing and getting all these bright people to just start working on something, because we can compete. We're an extremely wealthy country. We have the consumer is here, all of those things at our advantage. So I think the biggest thing is just getting people inspired to get into manufacturing, and that this is cool. It could be sexy. Everybody thinks, oh, I don't want to work in a dirty shop and all that kind of thing, but it's really not that way anymore. You go into a good shop, it looks like a laboratory. So
Sure.
so that's a big part of it. I think the technology advancement, the automation involved and all that, where like with us, you have kind of a core team with all these machines that run themselves. That trend is going to bleed into all the other types of manufacturing and new factories and things like that, where you have a small team of highly educated, talented engineers or something like that, and they're able to leverage all this technology to produce so much. So it's really
Sure.
the capital intensive aspect of it is, I think, one of the big thing that needs to get solved. We need a ton of capital investment in manufacturing in the U.S., which I think that the writing's on the wall that's kind of on the way, I think.
Sure. Last question is like if anyone were thinking about buying a 3D printing shop or starting one from scratch, what are the core pieces of advice, like do's or don'ts, you would give them?
I would say pick the right equipment is a big one, because if you pick the wrong stuff and you need to upgrade and rotate all like that, we in the first 2 years we were using the best equipment at the time, and then all this stuff came out and now we've got completely obsolete stuff. So you have to know that that's a possibility. That's one. And I think just getting reps in and learning all the little nuances and tricks and things, because that's a big thing that we can offer now, where another additive company may say, this part's just not doable, or they can't get the quality there and things. Everything we've learned with doing so many of our own products and just having so much exposure to it in time, we can make things happen that may not have been able to, a lot of other shops maybe just wouldn't be able to do. So I think being able to, so production capacity is the number one thing that enables you to do a lot more. So building up that as fast as you can, just reinvest. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Got it. I know you guys are close to potentially bringing injection molding capabilities in-house. Are there any other big milestones or things you're looking forward to in the next year?
Yeah, I mean, really just keeping the big initiatives right now. Like we're trying to do, when it comes to doing our own products, do much better, higher quality products of our own, and focus more on the marketing side of things and building brands, and then penetrating much more into B2B. That's the other big initiative, so that we can get the revenue in to reinvest in higher end equipment that opens up a whole new set of opportunities and solutions. So you're just always, we started from scratch with really no outside capital, bootstrapped the whole thing every step of the way. And that's just the mindset we have, is build one thing and get good at it, into the next thing. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the SLS powder printing, that's kind of our next equipment that we have our eyes on. And just trying to get our name out there more, and there's few print farms to begin with, and even fewer that have been in business for 5+ years now, and kind of seeing everything develop and know everybody and all that. So that's kind of the big focus now.
Well, Ryan, thanks so much for coming on. If folks want to find y'all, where should they go?
Go to our website. My business partner, he's worked really hard on get some updates there. It tells kind of everything that we do, how to contact us. And we look forward to anybody, and any opportunity anybody has, run it by us, and we'll see if we can help with it. So
awesome. Well, thanks so much for the time, Ryan.
Yeah, I appreciate it.